Hello everyone in the Fine Network. This is the second episode of a series of 5 podcast talks with prominent names in the fintech industry. In this episode, we'll deep dive into the banking ecosystem and how innovative solutions are transforming the industry. To better understand these new and transformative applications in the banking ecosystem, we have invited 2 experts in the field who are also ambassadors of the Fine Network. Viktoria Soltesz, a payment consultant, banking expert, and Marina Ideses, a specialist in digital payment solutions and fraud. And joining as a moderator, we have here Bozena Adamczyk, partner at Truffle Capital, one of the Fine Consortium members. Thank you all for joining. So, as a quick start, Viktoria and Marina, how are the new technologies and regulations changing banking in our current times?
As a payment consultant and the banking expert, I can see a lot of developments on fintech. And fintech is having 2 parts, as we know. One is the financial part, which is the regulation and all the compliance and actual the meat on the bone. But the other part is the tech, so the technology. And as we are living in this ever-changing world, there is always new things which are coming up, which is aiming for better user experience, which is aiming for easier transferring of the money. So if you are a business owner, what you need to really understand is that there are myriads of different opportunities out there for you. Your job is to be able to identify the opportunities, be aware of what kind of opportunities are there, what are the fees, terms and conditions, technologically, how does it fit in your whole operation, obviously compliance-wise. You're complying with all the rules and regulations, because now, international companies are truly international, dealing with different rules and regulations and compliance hurdles, and overall understand what type of providers, payment facilitators, banks, financial products can benefit you the most. So there are a lot of new developments. By the time we discuss that and by the time this episode is aired, already there are lots of changes in the world. AI is changing everything. So your job is to really keep your eye on the ball and really understand what is available for you.
Marina, would you like to add something about that?
Yes, I think it's very important to understand the big changes in the world and in the banking, and everything started since the middle of 2010, where we have a big changes in the regulation and in the technology. So some of the changes that maybe you have seen are more important between 2014 and 2018. So in 2014 and 15 is when we saw the challenger banks like Monzo and Revolut in UK and then N26 in Europe. That makes a big change to the banking industry, because suddenly you have these neobanks, very agile, interrupting the traditional way of operating. And then in 2017, around 2018, you have the mobile banking application coming, and people were, some adapted because they wanted, some others were forced to, because banks start to closing branches, and so there you have to rely on the mobile applications. All these changes make a huge impact in the banking technology. And so I can mention regulatory changes like GDPR, PSD2, which probably the audience knows already, anti-money laundering. That was also a big change in the terms of the regulatory changes. And now, I would say in the last 3 years, the green finance changes. So where banks need to comply and be more conscious about how do they invest their funds. And in terms of technological changes, of course, mobile banking, open banking makes a huge impact in the banking industry, the blockchain and the cryptocurrencies as well, and machine learning, artificial intelligence, even robotic processes that automated the system. All these make a huge impact in the banking in the currently times.
Yeah, definitely. I agree that the regulation gives a lot of opportunities for fintech and the financial industry in general. So let's move to AI. AI and machine learning are increasingly being utilized in banking. So could you tell us how are AI and machine learning currently being used in banking, and what are the benefits?
So artificial intelligence and machine learning are transforming the banking sector in UK and in EU because it's enhancing the operational efficiency, is improving apparently customer service, and there are more security measures taken in place. So I would say in the fraud and detection and prevention, you see that a lot of fintech and a lot of banks are analyzing the transactions data in real time using artificial intelligence. I would maybe mention some HSBC as an example, and Barclays in UK. They utilize a AI-driven system for this purpose, for fraud prevention. Another very important one is the chatbots, which we might agree or disagree how good they are today, but many banks are introducing that. So that provided 24/7 customer support. Sometimes the automation is not as good as maybe we expect, but we are seeing that a lot with NatWest, for example. I'm trying to think another bank. I think Santander also implemented chatbots.
So AI is a double-edged sword, right? Because AI can be really utilized to make life easier and enhance the fraud protection, and obviously introduce new, better user experience, not just in fintech, but in every aspect of the life. So obviously there's going to be a lot of changes, but scammers also have the access to all of these AI tools. So during my practice, I have seen a lot of creative ideas about how to bypass those kind of regulatory requirements. And the biggest problem with regulation is that not really common. So there are some directives, there are some recommendations of how to do that, what to do, but there is no clear indication of the steps that some companies and financially regulated companies need to take. So the problem is that it is still very subjective. Now, if we have these more sophisticated tools through AI, through the picture generation, through the even creating those kind of documents might not be valid, right? This puts an extra layer of difficulty on the compliance work. So fintech is already having a lot of problem with compliance, because obviously following all these ever-changing rules and regulations is not easy, mainly if your financial license is on the line. But dealing with these enhanced methodologies through AI, what the scammers are coming up, it's just a whole layer of complexity, which involves cost, time, effort, and therefore, we will see, I think, in the future, of who adopted to that in a more efficient way, who didn't, and obviously how did it affect their overall prices, which is obviously going to be paid by the end user. So AI is a good opportunity, but just hold on, because there could be more challenges with this than in benefits if you're not thinking about it and set up an overall strategy to optimize those challenges.
I might add, regarding the compliance and all the scams that we can see increasing, is that if the banking system utilized AI, they can automate the data collection and the reporting, and somehow understand those patterns and make the fraud. They can anticipate similar processes and then stop it. But of course, cybersecurity is a huge topic at the moment because it's obviously there are new tricks constantly, and but I think that's where the banks need to invest a lot, especially for artificial intelligence in data collection and reporting, and how to improve that internally, and of course. They have to be efficient with regulatory reporting as well, because the regulation is gonna stop them to accessing some data as well.
Yeah, so to summarize, so we see a lot of opportunities in fraud detection. You mentioned chat about probably also like in credit scoring and all of around that, but there are some challenges and limitations, and especially in terms of regulatory data privacy and transparency. So let's move to the next topic in future trends in banking innovation. So what emerging technologies or trends are likely to shape the future of banking in your opinion?
Yeah, so I think we are going back to the discussion of artificial intelligence and machine learning, predictive analytics and automation. This is one of the emerging technology that we will see a lot of interaction with the future of banking. Of course, blockchain and cryptocurrency. We all know that MiCA, the regulation will start coming in place, and it should be completed by 2025. So that is going to see a lot of changes, a lot of new fintech coming to cover all those requirements in terms of blockchain. Open banking is going to continue expanding, and of course APIs are going to even improve the way that they help third-party integrations with banks. Mobile banking is another example, what is already very well developed, but many more is coming. And something that probably is important to mention is the fintech collaboration. So there should be much more from the moment that the fintech have a latest technology and banks have legacy systems, they will need to work between traditional banks and fintechs to drive innovation.
Also, I would add that payments got more and more international, because if you have an online business, you're no longer restricted to focus on one part of the world. And different countries like to pay in different ways. So that's what we see, that there are a lot of government influence in optimizing the payment system. For example, you know, the UPI in India, or there could be other different payment methods which could be unique for that given area or that given kind of community. So for example, as Marina mentioned, mobile payments are very popular in Africa. Good thing is that now people, even though that they don't really have access to the traditional banking, because maybe they need to, you know, bicycle up to the nearest village and it's burdensome, they don't have the KYC records, obviously many of them don't have utility bills to identify them, but they still have disposable income, so they can be involved in, you know, the international payments. So what these people do, they take advantage of these little loopholes, right? So that could be the mobile payment, the top-up cards, the vouchers, as you know, Marina mentioned, crypto. That was one of the reasons for crypto, because that it means financial inclusivity for all those people who are currently unbanked. So the good thing is that these people are now have much easier ways to connect to the international payments and spend their money even online, have the banking products and services as we used to do in, you know, Europe and in the States and more developed countries. But the burdensome thing is that those regulations are totally different than Europe or the US. So those flow of funds could still be a massive headache for the European regulated banks, how to do those KYCs. You know, what's the source of funds? Has it been taxed? How has it been handled by the local, you know, fintech companies, or even, non-financial licensed providers. For example, the mobile network is not really a bank, but with mobile payments, they act as a financial institution, collecting, holding, transferring money. So this has a lot of different questions of the international holistic approach, which will eventually, I think, will globally regulate the payment flows, because it cannot be that one side of the world is less regulated and more accepting, and they just not have certain kind of rules on certain payment methods, for example, crypto, or even banning crypto, for example, as we see in a couple of countries even today. But the other side of the world is developing and having a MiCA and all of these rules around payment. So in my opinion, eventually it will grow together. And yes, as Marina mentioned, there's going to be a lot of collaboration between different companies coming from different countries as well, and make everything accessible for the global citizens and global payment flows.
So how should traditional banks adapt to stay competitive? You mentioned collaboration. Is there anything else that you see in the face of these future trends, how they should act?
Yeah, banks have a lot of opportunity, but a lot of challenges as well. So if they play their cards right, they understand what's happening in the market, not just with the traditional banking mindset of like, this is what we did for 20 years, this is going to be good for the next 20, because they need to innovate. Every company, if not already is, but definitely will be very shortly, a fintech company, because you cannot just be a financial company without the tech. You do need to satisfy the new generation with the application. You do need to improve user experience. So even though you don't want to be, you will be a fintech company eventually, right? So they need to really understand, first of all, what is the competition out there? What is the different regulation globally, not just in your country that you're operating, but globally? What are your opportunities and what are your challenges? And this needs, as I said, a completely holistic approach and a different kind of knowledge and a different kind of experience set, which needs a different kind of professional to advise them. Because until now, these were the bankers, they advise a mortgage or whatnot. The same correspondent accounts were used for over 20 years, as I said. Same product, services, it's a mortgage, it's a credit card, we are making money, we are good. But now things are really sophisticated, right? You need to compete with the N26. You need to compete with the mobile payment in Africa. You need to compete with UPI in India, right? So how are you getting ahead of the curve, obviously in the most cost-effective and obviously safest way, but still keep your original client base? This is the question, and that's why specialized knowledge in banking and payments is in a demand, as I can see.
I can add that I work in a traditional banks and I also work in fintechs. And I think the main challenge traditional banks have is the fact that they try to become a fintech, and we've seen many large banks opening their own fintech companies or initiatives for fintechs, independently of open banking and a technical process. And the problem I think they have is that they don't have the agility, the members of the traditional banks, they don't have the agility to understand that they need to approach the market differently. The times frames for the market are much more faster, removing bureaucracy. A fintech acts very fast, while a traditional bank, despite they may have a more flexible opportunities, are continue being slow and bureaucratic. So this is something that I think they should improve a lot. Another thing I will mention is that with artificial intelligence, one of the problems that the banks have is that they don't have enough, and they cannot find enough artificial intelligence experts. So I think they might need to collaborate a bit more with universities or with third parties in order to educate their existing employees, because fortunately traditional banks don't replace the employees so often as maybe fintech, which you see in a fintech environment, employees move very quickly. In the banking, in the traditional banking, their employees are there for years, so they need to improve that to make them be much more innovative and learn a bit better about artificial intelligence, and in order to continue and improve.
Very interesting. Marina, Viktoria, thank you so much for this explanation. We have covered a lot of ground today about AI, regulatory, and future trends. Well, stay tuned for more episodes where we continue to dive into the world of finance and technology.
Thank you, Bozena, and thank you to our guests, Marina and Viktoria, for being part of the podcast today, and also for adding so much value to our network, being ambassadors. And to our listeners, if you are interested in joining our network for investors, visit fintechnetwork.eu. On our website, you can explore for free our mapping tools on the European fintech ecosystem, with excellent leads to start identifying the main actors in 10 European countries. Also, follow us on LinkedIn, the fastest way to connect with our project and to receive the latest updates on our activities. And for more, stay tuned to this podcast series. It might be the start of your investment journey. We will meet you in the next episode.